All right, today we're unlocking the third dimension. We're going to see how a group of European universities took on one of the trickiest subjects in school and ended up building a virtual playground that completely changed the game for teaching geometry. Let's get into it.
Okay, first, let's all go back to the classroom for a second. You remember, right? Staring at a flat drawing of a cube or a pyramid in your math book, trying with all your might to make it pop into 3D in your head? It's a universal struggle. You're trying to grasp this world of depth and volume from a static, totally lifeless image. It's brutal, and honestly, for a lot of students, it's the exact moment when geometry starts to feel impossible.
And you know what? Teachers know this better than anyone. This quote from the research project we're covering today just hits the nail on the head. Trying to sketch a 3D object on a 2D blackboard, it's a lot of work, and more often than not, it just doesn't work. The drawing has no depth, you can't spin it around, you can't interact with it. It's a total mismatch between the subject and the tool.
So what you have here is this massive clash. Think about it. In the real world, we learn about objects by picking them up, turning them over, seeing them from all sides. It's dynamic, it's spatial. Textbook learning is the complete opposite. So the huge question becomes, how in the world do you bridge that gap? How do you bring that hands-on, real-world feeling into a geometry classroom?
Well, this is where our story's hero comes in. Faced with this exact problem, a group of educators and developers created what they called the DALEST project. Now, the name stands for Developing an Active Learning Environment for Stereometry, which, is really just the fancy term for 3D geometry. Their whole mission was to find a better way to learn this stuff.
And this wasn't just some small side project. Starting back in 2005, 5 different universities from Cyprus, the UK, Portugal, Greece, and Bulgaria all teamed up. For 2 years, they researched, they designed, and they built this dynamic 3D software aimed specifically at middle school students. The goal was to make these abstract concepts tangible and maybe even a little fun. The whole entire project was built on one single core idea: visualization. See, the goal wasn't just to show students 3D shapes. It was to give them the tools to build a really strong mental model, that rich picture in their mind's eye. They wanted students to be able to rotate, unfold, and slice these shapes inside their own heads, a skill that flat diagrams just can't teach.
So, what did they actually build? Well, they created this suite of applications, basically a digital playground for geometry. And each little app was designed to build a very specific spatial skill through these cool, interactive challenges. So let's take a quick tour, shall we?
First up, we have the potter's wheel, and this is just brilliant. You start with a simple 2D shape, say a line or a triangle, and you rotate it around an axis. And poof, just like a potter shaping clay, you instantly generate a 3D object, like a cylinder or a cone. It makes that connection between 2D and 3D so incredibly intuitive. Next up is Slider. This one is like a geometric mystery game. There's a hidden 3D shape, and your only clue is the 2D cross-section you see as you move this cutting plane through it. So is that circle you're seeing a slice of a sphere, or a cone, or a cylinder? You have to be a bit of a detective, analyzing the changing patterns to figure out what's hidden inside. Then we've got scissors, and this one flips a classic problem right on its head. Instead of folding a flat piece of paper into a cube, you start with the cube. The app gives you a target shape, a net, and you have to figure out which 7 edges to cut so the cube unfolds perfectly into that shape. It's this super cool reverse engineering puzzle. And Stuffed Toys takes that idea and runs with it. You're shown a 3D toy, and your job is to spin it around, look at it, and then predict which of the 11 possible nets it will form when it's unfolded. But here's the kicker. You have to do all of the unfolding completely in your head. And finally, there's the Cubics editor. Think of this as the ultimate sandbox. It's like digital Legos. It gives you an unlimited supply of little blocks and just lets you build anything. It's a space for pure creation, where students can make their own shapes, figure out volume and surface area, and just explore spatial relationships totally freely. So these apps are obviously way more engaging than a textbook. That's a given. But here's the real genius behind it all. This play is meticulously designed to build fundamental cognitive skills. So let's dive into that. See, every single interaction in these apps has a purpose. Nothing is by accident. Dragging and rotating an object on the screen directly trains your brain's ability for mental rotation. The puzzles and scissors and stuffed toys, those are hardcore exercises in spatial reasoning. And analyzing those cross-sections in Slider, that sharpens your pattern recognition skills. It is literally learning by doing. And this wasn't just guesswork either. The designers based the whole software on a well-researched model of learning. They knew that for visualization to really work, you need 4 things to click together: the mental images in your mind, the external representations you see on the screen, the visualization processes you use to connect those two, and the core visualization abilities you develop over time.
And you can see that whole model in action. Let's say you want to make a cylinder. You don't type in commands. You physically click and drag to set the circular base, then you pull it up to the height you want. It's this intuitive physical act that perfectly bridges the gap between your mental picture of a cylinder and the object on the screen. It gives you a real feel for the solid's properties. So what does all this mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, that brings us to the legacy of a project like this. Because ultimately, DALEST is about so much more than just geometry. It represents a fundamental shift in how we think about education, a move beyond the flat pages of a textbook. And that, right there, is the big shift. It's the move away from passively sitting there, receiving information and trying to memorize it, towards becoming an active explorer. Instead of being told the properties of a pyramid, you discover them. You build it, you turn it, you take it apart. And that is a lesson that actually sticks. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, first, that real, meaningful interaction is the absolute key to deep learning. Second, that the right tools can make abstract ideas feel totally concrete and real. And maybe most importantly, that purposeful play isn't a distraction from learning, it is one of the most powerful engines for learning.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. If a virtual playground can totally revolutionize something as tricky as 3D geometry, what other complex subjects are just out there waiting to be unlocked in the same way? What's the next frontier for this kind of active, hands-on digital learning? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.